Ladies and gentlemen, it's exciting to have you glued to your screens to get what value you can from this conversation that we're going to have, which by the way is going to be life-changing. I'm here with an amazing gentleman, and he's going to be thrilling you with a lot of wisdom, especially drawing from his own journey. And guess what? We're going to be talking marriage. Marriage. That's a topic that excites a lot of young people, and we will be ready to take on your questions and maybe come back to them when we are done with the content we have to dish out. So I want to introduce you to, well, he goes by many hats, he wears many hats. We call him Pastor G, some people call him Prof. But of course, for the sake of this interview, permit me to call him Pastor G. Pastor G is a lecturer, he's an associate professor, he's a father, he's a husband, and I'm privileged to be interviewing him in Pretoria, here in South Africa. Well, maybe he wants to say something about himself to those who are getting to know him for the first time.
Well, thank you so much, Pastor George, and good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you are watching this. It's my honor, and I count myself very privileged to be able to come to you this day on this subject that I know it's very intriguing to a lot of people, excites a lot of young people, but also very important to the heart of God. And like he said, I'm married. We've been together now for 16 years.
Wow.
Ring is done.
Wow.
And I still don't think it qualifies me to speak authoritatively on marriage. Yeah, I think that I still have a lot to learn. It's a journey. But I'm happy to share the experiences of the lessons that we have learned over time, hoping that it's going to be a blessing to somebody.
Wow. But I just want to find out from you, why does marriage raise such dust? Why is it that we get tickled and we get excited? If you were to organize two programs, one is a revival service and the other one is a marriage seminar, you can be sure you have more youths in the marriage seminar. What is it about marriage that makes people really excited?
I think God meant it to be that way, right?
Okay.
I mean, all the way from the book of Genesis, when God brought Eve, to Adam, he woke up from a sleepyhead to a poet. He became inspired. This is flesh of my blood, flesh of my flesh, and bone of my bones, and she shall be called a woman. And I think that it's the beauty of the family unit that God established from the very onset. So there's a natural inclination inside each and every one of us, and inside most people, to want to be part of that beautiful experience. And I think most of us growing up, being looking forward to the opportunity to be able to get it right. And so I think it's that excitement that the Lord has put in there for the institution that He created because of the value that He attaches to it. Yeah.
Powerful.
Yeah.
We live in a world that seems to be going through what I may call an identity crisis, and these days we hardly know which is which. That specifically means that we have to provide a definition for marriage. There's a lot that passes for marriage these days, and given that we are of the biblical tradition, we have a responsibility to educate.
Right.
Pastor G, what is marriage?
A man shall leave his father and his mother and be united to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh.
Okay.
That's marriage. That's defined in the Bible. Everything else is a human deviation.
Okay.
Everything else is a human attempts to redefine God, redefine God's
So
idea.
what do you
of
make of?
marriage.
I mean, we're in South Africa, and you know what South Africa is. What do you make of this gay tendencies? Women falling for women and marrying women, men falling for men and marrying men, and some even going beyond men and women to marry animals. What do you make of all of this? Which by the way, which I consider to be madness.
It's moral depravity.
Okay.
It's moral depravity. From a biblical perspective, every time a society experienced a heightened level of moral depravity.
Mm.
It often, the one institution that typically got attacked is the institution of marriage.
Wow.
In the book of Romans chapter 1, I think from verse 18, Paul describes it in the context of, since you did not think it wise to retain the knowledge of God, he gave you over to a depraved mind.
Mm.
And as part of that depraved mind, he goes down to describe that men were inflamed with lust
My God.
for each other, and that people invented ways of doing evil. The classical biblical example is the story of Sodom and Gomorrah. So it seems to be a pattern in scripture that whenever a society attains a certain level or heightened level of moral depravity, the institution of marriage is attacked with all kinds of emerging sexual engagements that are outside of the biblical
Deviations,
aberrations that are so that. So it's unfortunate that a country like South Africa on the African continent should be taking the lead in that definition of civil liberties, of liberties, because on the African continent, and I need to say, for the interest of South Africa and for those who are outside South Africa, that although, and I say this very carefully, although it is enshrined in the South African Constitution, it is not a reflection, I would dare to say, of the views of majority of South Africans. South Africa is a country that is 60 to 70% Christian. And although they have learned to live in a society that tolerates and is inclusive of all people's sexual preferences and orientations, the Christian community in South Africa and the Muslim community in South Africa and the religious community in South Africa are still of the view that though we live in a democratic society, marriage is still between a man and a woman.
And you if you're following us, you obviously know that we are advocating for sanity in the society. Now, who should marry?
Interesting question. One who is ready.
Okay.
One who is ready. One who is ready, and readiness is a very composite term.
Okay.
That is it varies broadly from one's cultural and situational context to the other.
Okay.
But in most countries and in most society, readiness for a man is responsibility.
Okay.
Financial responsibility and maturity. Financial responsibility, the independence to be able to take care of oneself enough to want to extend that responsibility to another person.
Okay.
And also the readiness in that context to be able to welcome a family, because with marriage is the hope and expectation that God will bless you with children. So that readiness to be able to take care of yourself and another person and the other people that could come up as part of that union is often the test of responsibility that often goes in there. But that responsibility and that readiness is not just the presence of finances or the absence of it in any case. Typically, the absence of it gets people to frown at it. But there are people who are responsible who do not have abundance of finances because they have demonstrated responsibility, their ability to be able to take care of themselves and take care of the little that they have.
Okay.
So readiness in this instance is not necessarily the size of your bank account. It's the size of your maturity capital.
Do you think readiness is a subjective or an objective concept? Is it a case, but is it an individual who decides that they are ready?
No, they have to be objective measures of readiness.
Okay.
If you keep it subjective, there are some people who will not even be ready at 40.
Okay.
Or at 50. Because they will tell themselves that they still have a few things to accomplish before they get married. So there has to be an objective basic minimum that says you have a roof over your head. That is usually key. A roof over your head says that there's a secure space in which you can welcome a second person and the person would feel protected.
So are you frowning at people who marry and have to bring the woman to live with them in their parents' compound?
In most instances, it's not the best.
Okay.
It's not the best, especially for the young couple. if you don't have an option, if you do not have a, if there is not some, I mean, listen, there are instances in which the husband, the family compound is the place where the married person has built. And to the extent that both of them have an understanding that they are going
I'm
there.
actually talking about living under your father's roof.
Oh no,
Pulling whoever you married
no, you're
into.
not, you're not bringing your wife for your father to take care of your wife, right? It's not a healthy. It's typically not advised. I would not advise. It's not advisable.
Okay.
If it can be avoided, I would say avoid it.
Okay.
For the simple fact that, listen, you are a young couple. Your wife is a young bride. She needs to be afforded an opportunity to make her own mistakes, to learn her own lessons, and to define her own space. You don't want her to do that under the tutelage of your mother. Your mother is a much more experienced. She's as experienced as you are old.
Okay.
In taking care of people and
okay,
of
now
households.
there has been this raging debate. I don't know if it's just for the sake of splitting hairs around what do you bring to the table. I think it has gotten more attention over the last, I don't know, century or so. It's always a question of, for the man and for the woman, what is it that you are bringing to the table? What do you have to say about this whole concept of bringing something to the table?
I am the table. You are the table. But on a more serious note, I think that the people involved are the table.
Okay.
And this is why I say that. In the increased difficulty of successful marriage over the years and the difficulties that come with separation and divorce and all of that, people have become increasingly conscious about the nature of the marital contract. And also in a world that is vastly materialistic, people have also become extremely conscious about the nature of the marital contract. Different legal systems in different parts of the world protect the man and the woman differently in marriage in the event of a divorce, so people have become very sensitive about what they bring to the table. But I think the way God intended marriage to be is for two people to love and risk it all. And to go in it knowing that you're going in it for better or for worse, for it to succeed at all costs. And I think that, personally, I think the kind of love that works is a kind of love that is willing to risk all. And it's a kind of love that does not have a backup plan.
Wow.
Whenever you go into a marital situation with a backup plan, the probability of using that backup plan increases because it exists.
Wow.
The fact that you have a backup plan predisposes you to interpret every difficulty within the context of, is it time to trigger the backup plan, And so the likelihood of you going to the backup plan increases because there's a backup plan.
So you don't give your all.
You don't give your all.
Yeah.
You give a part of yourself with understanding that this thing could go wrong.
Yeah.
And if it goes wrong, I have a consciousness of what I'm falling back onto.
Okay.
And that is usually, it's very important because you would face hardships. Every marriage has difficult seasons. Every relationship goes through highs and lows.
Okay.
The people that last long in the process is not because they never had challenges. It's because they learned how to deal with their challenges. It's because they learn how to fight and to fight healthy. All couples fight.
You talk about challenges, and I want us to shine the light on something. That phase that two people go through before they go to the altar and take their vows. What is it that they have to put in place to ensure that they don't fall into the pitfalls that are on their way to the altar? Particularly, I need you to tell us something about tackling sexual purity or protecting your purity, because it appears to me as one of the challenges that typical two young people who are going into marriage would face, because at some point you feel like, oh, we are very close, we are as good as husband and wife, so let's just, so what can you give to this generation as advice in the area of sexual purity?
Having sex with your fiancé before marriage is going to sow a seed of mistrust in your relationship. it's going to sow the wrong foundations and it's going to predispose you to a whole range of challenges. You need to exercise self-control and you need to put healthy boundaries.
Okay.
Very practical. Be transparent, be accountable, get spiritual authorities involved in the management of relationship, set boundaries.
Wow.
And one of the reasons why I personally I don't like too long courtships. By the time he says, will you marry me? I do. You guys should have a date in mind. And once you have a date in mind, you should have practical ways of handling that season and that phase. The fact of the matter is, once you already have love, affection for someone, it lowers your guard.
Right.
Your predisposition to fall into sin with that person is slightly higher because you love them. Your emotions are already involved. Once your emotions are involved, it compromises your values, your principles, and all of that. So in that instance of you, it's like you have a lowered resistance because you're dealing with the one you love. You need external support mechanisms.
Right.
And your external support mechanisms are being in an accountable relationship. For a woman, have an older woman with whom you are completely open and transparent about the challenges you are facing in the relationship. Even if in the process you fall into the temptation of touching each other or kissing, have yourself in a space where you are able to go and confess and remedy the situation, that you can be brought back to check before you walk down the aisle. That's number one. Number two, follow the practical recommendations when it comes to creating a healthy relationship. Meet in public spaces, meet with third parties. Do not find yourself in a dark room with soft worship music in the background and rain is falling outside and you are trying to intercede for the nations. You're fooling yourself and then you blame the devil and say the work of the devil. The devil is like, I had nothing to do with this. I was not even there in the first place. It has nothing to do with the work of the devil. The Bible says
accusation.
No one can bring fire onto his bosom and not be burnt.
Right.
You know. So marriage is that one aspect, especially for couples that are engaged, where you have to be very practical and very intentional in maintaining the purity of the altar that you're about to raise together, so that it will not count against you once you get it. So it's very practical considerations.
Now, when should you break a relationship?
An engagement.
Yes, an engagement. When should you break it?
Listen, even the eve of the wedding, it's sad to say, because you normally should not have gotten yourself to the point where it's the night before the wedding, before you're picking up certain things, if you did things correctly. But I'm saying that in the worst case scenario, even the morning of the wedding, if it is not the person, suffer the consequences of not going through with that relationship and what people would say, than going through the relationship for something that you know you're going to live with regret. They often say a broken engagement is better than a bad marriage.
Right. Which naturally leads us to another question. What are some of the things that men do or women do in the course and context of a relationship that come across as red lights? Or red flags, rather. Red flags, yeah.
Oh, red flags. If you pick up habits that are non-negotiables for you, you rather not go ahead with the relationship.
Okay.
Habits in his use of finances. So if you pick up the fact that he's a spendthrift, or he gambles, he plays lottery, or he misuses his money on drugs, or in the casino and those kinds of things, or in alcohol, those are red flags. His relationship with other women, those are red flags. If somebody is in a relationship and about to get married to you and is entertaining intimacy with other women at the same time, intimacy of a varying kind, it could be from physical intimacy to emotional intimacy. Those are usually red flags. Emotional intimacy, we typically not pay a lot of attention to because we say they have not slept together. But a man is supposed to be single-hearted.
Right.
And single-heartedness is a function of integrity, and it's a decision that a man takes. A man decides that this is the one I've set my attention on, and this is the one that I'm going to build my life with. And from that choice, it does not mean that the other women stop being beautiful or stop being attractive to him. But that is where his integrity and his honor kicks into play, where he needs to then follow through with the decision of making sure that he keeps his word to the one woman that he has committed himself to live with for the rest of his life. Now, if you are in the space where you are in an engagement or in a courtship space, and he's treating you especially as he's treating all the other sisters that are around you, then that's a red flag. You know, for some people it's their personality type. It may not be a definition of their morality. But if you see that
and confront it,
and you realize that it's a moral issue, not a character or personality issue, then you need to think seriously about going ahead with the relationship. And then the second thing, which I often encourage people to try and not to overestimate the anointing. You know, you're not the Holy Spirit. There are some things that you see that God has not succeeded to work out in the life of a man or a woman. Don't tell yourself that you go into that space and change him. You know, Deputy Holy Spirit. You are overestimating your ability to transform an individual. So, and here's the last thing. Believe what you see. You know, believe what if your eyes.
Seeing is believing.
Yes, what your eyes are telling you. Don't think that you're having believe what the person tells you, and then make a decision based on the fact that this is it. You know, your eyes should be clearly open as you walk. They say love is blind. Marriage is going to clear your eyes.
We have seen it in movies severally where a lady catches a man doing something maybe with another lady, and the typical excuse or response is not what you think. And Pastor G says, believe what you see. And that is very important. We have a situation in the church where brothers and sisters alike flash green lights.
Leading signs.
They lead people on. And at some point, it feels like I never at any point told you I was interested in you. I would like you to tackle this, first of all, from an integrity standpoint. And secondly, would you really help us know what this behavior looks like? What is it that brothers and sisters do that we consider as leading someone on?
Okay, I think the first thing I need to let me speak and address first of all the brothers. Brothers need to understand that once a sister is of a certain age, within a certain age group, they have attained the maturity wherein they are not young anymore, and so they're not looking for playmates. They're looking for serious relationships. Typically, in most instances, conservatively above 18, but once they have crossed their 20s, 2021, you are dealing with someone who takes every interaction with every male in her life seriously. So you are going to be extremely naive or wicked to be playing with the emotions of such a person by trying to be nice. You know, you're either foolish or demonic. You know, you're either extremely naive or you need to be flogged. You know, if you play around a sister in her 20s and you have no intention, and that is down outright wickedness. You know, and it's a lack of integrity. So it therefore then means that brothers need to then screen the interaction with sisters of a certain age and make it very clear in their engagements when they have intentions or when they don't have intentions. What are some of the things that they do to lead people on? Sisters, women respond to attention. Attention in words, attention in gifts, attention in time spent, attention in the way you treat them. Now, if you're a person who is naturally nice of character in your disposition, then you are one of those that have the tendency to be problematic, because a lot of people will interpret your kindness as intention. Now, you cannot say that this is who I am and then I can do nothing about it. No, that is being insensitive, it's being immature and not being considerate of the other. If you realize that you're the kind of person that is naturally nice to sisters, once you are of a certain age and the sisters you interact with of a certain age are concerned, you have to start imposing certain restraints upon yourself.
Right.
So that you'll be able to observe where you give attention. Very simple questions like, I did not see you in church, and I was wondering whether you're okay. Are you okay? Send in the form of a WhatsApp or an SMS or a phone call for a sister that has not come to church. Send a signal. Now, unless you're a departmental leader on mission, on assignment from your principal, pastor asking you to check on the member, when this is an initiative of your own, it may be innocent in action, but you're actually telling that sister that of all the people that did not come to church, you noticed that she was the one person that did not come to church. So you have an eye on her. That is just the way she interprets it. So you need to then be very careful not to send those kinds of innocent signals, because you're sending a message to your sister to say that, hey, I know when you are not in church, I notice that you're not in church. In other words, when you are in church, I notice that you are in church.
So I care about you.
So I care about you. So that those are sort of the and I want to, especially the leading on questions comes a lot at the level of brothers. Sisters, we're going to excuse them because especially in an African context, they have the obligation to be wooed. So there's a certain sense in which, yes, they should make themselves available. Yes, they should put their best foot forward. Yes, they should demonstrate and tell the brother that this is who I am and this is what you're going to get. I think some of them go overboard. I may not fully mastered some of the things that they do to go overboard, but brothers are also sensitive to attention, right? They are also sensitive to the things that you do to demonstrate to them that they're special.
You cook for a brother.
You cook for a brother. You
wash
bake,
his clothes.
You wash his clothes. You bake him cake on his birthday and send him a little card with a flower there, and send him presents on Valentine's Day and a little chocolate with a note and an envelope. Sister, you're going overboard in showing the love of Christ. Just pray for this brother and send him scripture. Let him have scripture, encourage and strengthen himself in the Lord. When you go and you go these extra additions, you are sending a signal that says, "I'm wife material."
All right, which brings me to another question. How do you know he is the one? How do you know she is the one? And when you know, what moves should you make as a male and as a female?
It's a very funny question. I'm going to answer this question, which I still get very angry when they tell me that, give me that answer. Especially for guys. They say when you meet the one, you know that she's the one. Before I got married, I used to get so... that's a very irritating answer because he doesn't say anything. But I think that on a more serious note, there's typically a triple kind of witness that confirms, especially let me speak from a man's perspective, that this is the one. There's a witness in your spirit. There's typically a witness that comes from your family, from a parental authority perspective, and there's a witness that comes from your spiritual authorities. Of all these three witnesses, I won't classify them because they're all important in their own rights.
Right.
The people who are getting married are supposed to, if they are spiritual, receive from the Lord, have no opposition in their spirit against this person. Now, very often, quite often, when love is involved, when you've already fallen in love, that personal witness becomes very difficult to verify. That's why you need the help of the other two. Now, the other two have their role to play. Now, spiritual witness from spiritual authorities typically comes from people that know you, love you, pray for you, and have an ability to be able to receive a word from God concerning you. Now, for those people, whenever it is that you find yourself in a wrong relationship, it's going to tick in their spirit. Their spirit will disagree with it. They may not always be able to put their finger on why they are not in agreement, but they will tell you something like, I don't have peace about this relationship, or they'll tell you something like, I don't think it's the right person for you. Obviously, in many instances, sometimes they get it wrong. Sometimes, in very rare instances, they are influenced by other a priori and other biases in the context of church politics. But there are lots of genuine cases where if you have a genuine relationship with a genuine mentor with whom you have journeyed for a long time, their opinion about your life partner, you should take seriously. So in other words, the mentorship should not start at the point where you want to choose a life partner. It must have been a journey that you have journeyed with together so that this person knows you and loves you genuinely and sincerely enough to be able to say that when a partner is presented, now this person is of God and has the Spirit of God. In their interaction with this person, if they have the Spirit of discernment and as they pray for you, they will be able to pick up, is this so? But I need to say that very often, I would often encourage that their input comes as a confirmation. As in a way of saying that the primary person that needs to hear God about your life partner is you.
Right.
Because you're the one who are going to be living with this person the rest of your life.
Right.
So, and of course, you do not need to start hearing God for the first time on the issues of life partners.
Okay. Now let's let's move on. Let's make some progress. When you hear God about a life partner and you meet with stiff resistance from your parents, should you get rid of that chain that holds you back, loyalty to your parents, and just go on and marry this person with or without their consent?
No.
Or what should you do?
Absolutely no. The first thing I would ask you to do in the face of resistance is to pray. The second thing I would ask you to do in the face of resistance is to give it time.
Okay.
The resistance could be for a variety of reasons. It may be God stopping you. It may be your parents demonstrating prejudices and bias.
Right.
It could maybe God delaying you. It could be a test of your resolve and your maturity.
Wow.
Now, 3 scenarios typically follow resistance. Some people resist initially, and once you have given them time to simmer and digest the information without you seeming like you're willing to go against them, they eventually come back to their decision. Because you have given them time and opportunity to get to know the person, to be able to change their mind. And if they're also prayerful people, they will often typically go back and pray.
Right.
Resistance, it's usually very rare instances where resistance is categoric and never changes. In an instance in which you find categoric resistance that doesn't change, my personal advice, and I like to speak like Paul speak, I also have the Spirit of God, is let go of the person. It's not worth it.
Okay.
You're going to realize that butterflies in the stomach can disappear very quickly. It's a wrong foundation to go. So my personal advice is never jump above the resistance of your
But
parents.
some people say if I leave him, I'm going to die.
Oh no. But guess what? If you die, he's going to get married to someone else. Disabuse yourself of that notion that
that your life depends
on it. No. Empirically and statistically, most of, in our own experience growing up, the relationships that have gone blatantly against parental consent suffer. First of all, between the two of you, you would grow to start resenting each other, because that person becomes the reason for which your lifelong relationship with the people that you love is broken.
Okay.
Now, you may think that in the thrill of the intensity of your love, you can overcome that. But the journey of marriage contains so many reality moments that you very quickly get over that euphoria that you had before you walk down the aisle. The rubber hits the road and you start living real life. And in the process of living real life, you need to live with the reality of a broken relationship with your family, in addition to all the other challenges that marriage has to come with.
Wow.
And that is going to place considerable strain on your relationship.
When is a couple considered married? Is it when they validated the requirements at the traditional level, at the civil level, and at the church level? When do you consider them married?
I'll talk about legality, I'll talk about appropriateness.
Okay.
From a legal perspective and from a biblically legal perspective, marriage is a dowry payment. So once your bride price has been paid and your parents have drank the nimble over your head and given their blessings and their go ahead, that you should be married, that their daughter should go off in marriage, that is biblical marriage. You are married.
Okay.
But for appropriateness and as part of Christian custom and tradition, because we live in societies that recognize marriage as a legal institution with contractual obligations and benefits, it is important for you to register that marriage with the state, because the state, in its allocation of your salary and its benefits, including allocation of your protection of your rights as a married woman and the rights of your children in that marriage, you need to formalize that relationship.
At the civil level.
At the civil level, you need to formalize, because it is that process that it gives you a new legal status as far as the state is concerned. You become the wife of Mr. X. That entitles you to certain rights and certain protections from the state as the wife of this person.
Right.
It's not to be ignored. And so, if you get your bride price paid and you do not get recognized as a state, in most societies, you lose out on certain protections and benefits associated with you being married to that person. So go through the legal marriage. And then if you are born again, if you are a child of God, I'm personally of the view that it would be inappropriate, and I can look for biblical passages to justify that before you, for you guys to consider yourself married before the church has blessed you. Because in the process of the church bringing you before the congregation and presenting you before God and consecrating your union before God and commanding, laying hands upon you and committing you into God's hand, there is an altar that is raised, an altar of righteousness, a foundation of a Christian home placed before the altar of God and before the witnesses of God, that has its own spiritual empowering elements, laying foundations both for the both of you who are involved and for the children that are supposed to come out of that union to start the relationship on a new spiritual altar of sorts. And it is vitally important.
So must it be a big occasion?
Does not be a big equation.
Okay.
It does,
because people have to literally break the bank these days to marry.
Absolutely not.
What do you have to say about that? I mean, people are losing their sleep over pulling the wedding of the century.
There is no such thing as a wedding of the century.
Okay.
You can spend 1 billion rand on a wedding and people will still come and eat and drink and insult you.
All right.
You can spend 5,000 on a wedding and people will come and eat and drink and bless you. The wedding is an event. The marriage is a lifetime. Cut your coat according to your means. Do not indebt yourself. Put yourself, your early relationship in jeopardy because you're trying to impress anybody. I've observed in the course of my own little experience of organization of marriages that people will come on that day and will pull resources together to make the wedding happen. I often tell the couples who are involved, secure your home after the wedding. So for a man, make sure that your woman has an equipped kitchen, has a privacy in terms of you being able to leave your marital home where you guys can do your business without she feeling like someone else is listening, and has minimum level of comfort. So prepare the nest for her to come into. It's more important than what happens on that day. Let her first couple of days and first welcome experience have evidence of the fact that you are thought about ahead of time and plan, and both of you should actually plan for that. It's more important to me than the wedding.
Okay.
And then separately from a man's responsibility, contribute to your wife's bride price. Depending on the kind of family you come from, your uncles, your fathers, and your brothers may help you, but you are the one marrying.
Right.
Do never place yourself in a position where somebody will tell you someday that I paid your wife's bride price.
That's a bad place to be.
That's a bad place to be. So for me, those are the two most important things.
Okay.
From a man's perspective. The rest of the things, man, if you guys eat KFC and drink Fanta, the marriage will still happen, life will continue.
Okay, last concern. You've been married for 16 years now. If you were asked to compress the principles that have kept you going, the things that you have lived by as principles, because for some other people who were married around the same time you got married, their marriage is history. Their marriage is history. And we are witnessing a hike in the level of divorce in the society today. But you have held on. If you were to share 4 things that have kept you going, what would they be?
One, the grace of God.
Okay.
God keeps you.
Okay.
God keeps you. God keeps you. Secondly, okay, I think in my case, I was extremely blessed with the wife that God gave me. I see what some other couples have to go through, some men have to go through, the kind of hell that their wife gives them. And every time I come back home and I thank God for my wife and I thank my wife, for making my life easy in so many ways. And there are lots of explanations that could be granted. So I think that getting married to someone that was God fearing and brought up to have the fear of God made a world of a difference in my life. It helps bring Christian character into the marriage, and the Christian characters that you need in marriage to succeed is forgiveness and humility. Marriage is the school of dying to self. Dying to self says that you learn to say I'm sorry, and you learn to forgive,
Okay.
and you learn to live with the other person's weaknesses.
And the other person will have weaknesses.
And the other person will have weaknesses,
Just like yourself.
Just like you have weaknesses, My angels don't get married, unfortunately, and they are nearest to perfection that human beings, they have weaknesses. So it's that willingness to be able to forgive, and that willingness to be able to look out for each other's interest.
Wow.
And that willingness to be able to learn together, to grow together, to see each other as brothers and sisters.
Okay.
I think that has kept us. We've received a lot of support from our families as well.
Amazing.
It's been huge. I've been particularly blessed that we've not had lots of family interference. Our families have essentially left us to live our lives, to not jump in and have opinions about how we are running our home and what is happening here and there. We have been left to ourselves to make our mistakes, to learn in the process. So that has been a blessing. So the biggest one for me is just Christian character. That ability, first of all, to die to self. If you are married, yourself will be tested.
Do you have any regrets when you look back, first of all, on the time you got married? Have you ever at any point regretted the choice of your life partner?
No.
Okay.
I don't have regrets about the time I got married.
Okay.
I feel extremely blessed and lucky to have the woman that I'm married to. For those who are younger in the marital journey, you would find strengths and abilities in your life partner that others don't have. You would find weaknesses in your life partner that are the strengths of other people. If you regret or decide to settle for the next person because of the strength that you find in them, you would very soon discover their weakness. And you would have to leave them because of those weaknesses to find someone that has the strength that compensates.
And then it becomes a vicious cycle.
It becomes a vicious cycle. So the wife that God gives you is a package with their strengths and their weaknesses.
Okay.
As you are a package with your strengths and your weaknesses. Some things you would wish you had, and quite frankly, some things you would have to come to terms with and make a conscious decision to live with. Because the person that you are married to is not perfect.
Right.
So you would have to realize that this is a weakness. For some instances, you would have to, have the patience to grow with them as they learn to overcome that weakness. For some other things, you just need to come to terms with the fact that this is who they are and make peace with it and live with it.
Wow.
In
a society that is so intoxicated with negative messages on marriage, and obviously with the high level of divorce in the society, many couples are dragging one another to court every other day, filing for divorce. What is your last message on marriage as an institution that has God for its source?
The intentions of God for marriage are good.
Okay.
Marriage is good when it's lived with God's heart at the heart of it.
Okay.
There are a fraction of the divorces that we experience today that is the fruit of two individuals that got either selfish or impatient. In my sense, there's a smaller percentage of people who get divorced because it's a life-saving decision. I think there's an unusual percentage of people who get divorced because of a heightened selfishness quotient. On the one part or the other, or both parts, they often describe that as they have grown apart, or they have
irreconcilable differences. They call them.
They call them irreconcilable differences. But usually those things are a fruit of red flags that were not attended to, change management. You get married to a 21-year-old, you have not seen the 30-year-old version of them, you've not seen the 40-year-old version of them. And each of those phases and stages in life come with different realities. The person you get married to in your early 20s is not the person that you're going to live with for the rest of your life. You need to be adaptable. You have not seen this woman when she's pregnant. You have not seen this woman when children wake her up in the middle of the night and she doesn't have enough sleep. You have not seen this man when he's lost his job. You have not seen this woman when she's rich. When she starts making more money than you.
Right.
There are different versions of each other that you have not discovered that pose certain challenges that people don't adapt to very quickly.
Okay.
But I think the fundamental commitment should be there to ask for God's help for you guys to live the longest together possible, because it's beautiful. It blesses the heart of God. It provides stability for the kids. It advances the kingdom. The advantages are just numerous. And two people that are prepared to die to serve should be able to go through that journey.
Thank you so much, Pastor G. And thank you so much for sitting with us through this interview. I hope that you have learned a thing or two about marriage. And we generally want to send across the message that marriage is a beautiful thing. Marriage is a positive thing. Irrespective of the rate of divorce in our society, we still have evidence of marriages that are succeeding and they're standing on Christ, the solid rock. And we believe that you probably would have some questions, and we look forward to hearing from you should you have those questions. Thank you again for your time and attention. God bless you.